This is section 3.2, part 2. Let P and Q represent the following simple statements. P is you are human, Q is you do not have hooves. Write the following compound statement in symbolic form. Being human is necessary for not having hooves. Remember, is necessary is actually one of our connectives, and it's a connective with the arrow. It's the same thing as if-then. Being human is necessary. Whatever is necessary has to follow the arrow. The being human has to follow the arrow, which is P. What precedes the arrow is this over here for not having hooves. So hooves would be Q, but not having hooves is not Q. So this is not, if not Q, then P. Now we look at something called if and only if statements, and sometimes you might remember from your geometry days it was abbreviated IFF. This book does not use that abbreviation, so we just stay with if and only if. When two statements are represented by P and Q, the compound if and only if is this with the double arrow, and this is called the biconditional. So P is the statement the word is set, and Q is the statement the word has 464 meanings. This P with the double arrow Q really stands for if and only if. P, if and only if, Q. And to translate that, that would be the word is set, if and only if the word has 464 meanings. The word is set if and only if the word has 464 meanings. Now, because it is an if and only if statement, I could have had this part first. It could have said the word has 464 meanings, if and only if the first part, the word is set. The reason I point that out is you might see it in a different order in your multiple choice homework. Generally, we usually write this with whatever came first. So P came first, so that's why we wrote the word is set. But there's nothing wrong with saying the word has 464 meanings, if and only if the word is set. This would translate as not Q, if and only if, not P. Not Q would be the word does not have 464 meanings, if and only if the word is not set. The word does not have 464 meanings, if and only if the word is not set. A couple charts that could help us here. Notice the symbolic statement on all of this is P with the double arrow Q, which for most people they think P if and only if Q. As I pointed out a minute ago, this is exactly the same as Q if and only if P. The order doesn't matter for how you write it. So a person is an unmarried male if and only if that person is a bachelor. It's exactly the same thing as saying a person is a bachelor if and only if that person is an unmarried male. This breaks down what the biconditional really means. P if and only if Q really means if P then Q and if Q then P. So if a person is an unmarried male, then that person is a bachelor, and if a person is a bachelor, then that person is an unmarried male. So you see that the biconditional, the double arrow, just saves you a little bit of time not having to write all that out twice. Also, the double arrow is equivalent to necessary and sufficient, both necessary and sufficient. You can think about that having the double arrow or having arrows on both sides means we need both the necessary and sufficient. Being an unmarried male is necessary and sufficient for being a bachelor. Notice they've also turned it around. Q is necessary and sufficient for P. So being a bachelor is necessary and sufficient for being an unmarried male. This is just a little conclusion of what we have done so far as the symbols. The negation is the tilde in front of P, not P. You'll see in a little bit when we get to parentheses, this it is not true that. I'll explain that to you in a minute. The conjunction is using the and you might also, to help you remember this, that and almost looks like an A for and. So that's the symbol for and. P and Q, remember instead of saying and, we could say but, we could say yet, we could say nevertheless. The disjunction is the or, P or Q. The conditional has one arrow, and it's if P, because that came first, then Q. The other way to put it is P is sufficient for Q, or the other way, Q is necessary for P. The biconditional is the if and only if P, if and only if Q. P is necessary and sufficient for Q. Here's where we deal with this it is not true that. if there is a negation outside of the parentheses, it's like distributive property. It has to apply to everything in the parentheses. And the way we do it in words is we say, it is not true that. So if these are my two simple statements, it is hot, it is sunny, it is not true that it is hot and it is sunny. The it is not true that is what is taking care of the negation. Notice my two simple statements do not have a not in them. It is hot, which is what P is. It is sunny, which is what Q is. Now we're going to look at some more complicated statements. Just glance down here real quickly. The chair is broken if and only if the play is boring and the job does not pay well. That gets a little more complicated, so we're going to have some rules to follow. So you're going to split the statement where the most dominant symbol is. This tells us about the dominance of symbols. And put parentheses around stuff that's on the right and or on the left. The more dominant symbol tells you what type of statement you have, and a comma supersedes all. So the least dominant is the negation symbol. Conjunction and disjunction are the same level of dominance, and they're pretty low on the totem pole. The conditional is next, and the biconditional is the most dominant, and the comma, if there is one, supersedes all. So let's take a look at this example. We've got our three statements, P, Q, and R. It says the chair is broken if and only if. Now we're going to do the same thing we've done before, and that is you want to circle the connectives, if and only if the play is boring and the job does not pay well. So let's see if we can get that translated. If and only if, we know, is going to be the double arrow. What do you see before the if and only if? You see the chair is broken. The chair is broken is R. The play is boring and the job does not pay well. The play is boring was P and the job does not pay well. Paying well is Q, but we need not Q because it does not pay well. Now we've got to group this up somehow, and what helps us is this comma right here. That comma breaks this into the part in front and the part behind. So in the front is just the R, but we do need to put parentheses around this part right here, because the comma not only told us to put this part together in the front, it also tells us to put this part together in the back. Here's a chart that shows you your dominance of connectives and how to deal with them. Pretend you don't see this right here. What you see right here is a statement that they want you to group. You look for the most dominant connective. You have the conditional, and not. The conditional is the most dominant. What I think about doing is I just chop that right there. What goes in front of that stands alone. What goes behind is going to need parentheses. That's why the grouping is over here. P and Q, arrow, not R. Our most dominant is the arrow. So P and Q will go together with the not R standing alone. Now we've got the conditional and the biconditional. The biconditional is more important. It's the most dominant. So if I put a little slash through there, then the P stands alone in front and the Q to R stands there. Here, the double is in the back. When I chop this, if P then Q stands together in the parentheses and the R stands alone. And now we've got several connectives. We have the if-then connective, which is the most important. So what goes together in front of that is that parentheses, and we also have parentheses back here. Here we've got some confusion because the and the or, neither one of them is more important, so it could go either way. We don't know. We don't have enough information. Let's see if we can use what we just learned in the chart to be able to translate these into symbols. Let's go through there and find any of our connectives. If and only if is a connective. Study hard and I pass the final. The others, look for any knots. We have a knot right there. So if and only if will be the double arrow. What do you see in front of that? I do not fail the course. P was fail the course. Do not fail the course is not P. On the back side of the double arrow, if I study hard, which was Q, and I pass the final is R. Use our dominance of connectives and see that we have our double arrow So if I thought about putting a little line through that and separating this into parts, that means this is going to have to go in the parentheses. Similar statement, but notice I have a comma here. So I do not fail the course if and only if I study hard and I pass the final. Go back and underline the not. So if and only if was our double arrow. I do not fail the course, that's still not P. I study hard, which was Q, and I pass the final. Oh, gee, that looks a whole lot like the other one. But if I erase this, you can see that we had a comma right there. That comma supersedes all. That comma makes all of that go together in parentheses. So I do not fail the course if and only if I study hard. That's in parentheses together because of the comma, and I pass the final. So notice the P, Q, and R are all in the same positions, but the parentheses changed. A multiple choice question, same thing. This time we have the symbols that we want to translate into words. We have a single arrow, which is if, then, and it is the most dominant connective. So what's in front of this arrow is all of my if. Now what is this? Q and R. Q is we finish eating. I'm just going to abbreviate. If we finish eating. And R, which is we go to the slope. Then P, which is temp below 40. So to say it out correctly, if we finished eating and we go to the slope, then the temperature is below 40 degrees. So have to look through here and see which is which. Notice we had parentheses here, which is going to equate to a comma. That's going to knock this out. If we have finished eating or we go to the slope, nope. If we have finished eating and we go to the slope, comma, because that's where the end of the parentheses were, then the temperature is below 40 degrees. Last one, we're going to write the compound statement into symbols, the opposite of what we just did a second ago. Here's our three. P is I exercise daily, Q is I eat my veggies, and R is I get sick. So I need to translate this into symbols. So if I exercise daily, or I eat my vegetables, then, so I've got if then, I do not get sick. So if then is going to be a simple arrow. If I exercise daily, exercise was P, or I eat my veggies, which was Q, then I do not get sick. R was getting sick, not getting sick is not R. Do we need parentheses anywhere? Yes, we do, because there's no comma in the sentence up here. I have to follow the dominance of connectives. The arrow right there would tell me to just that kind of breaks it down, and the P or Q will have to go in the parentheses together, then the arrow, and then the not R, and that is this right here.